Selling a property should feel like a fresh start, a clean handoff, a new chapter. But for too many seniors, that for sale sign becomes a beacon for predators. In the shadows of every listing lurk scammers posing as buyers, agents, investors, even friendly neighbors, all waiting for the perfect moment to strike. They forge documents, impersonate professionals, manipulate trust, and they target seniors. Today we expose their playbook, the tactics, the red flags, the infiltration points, and the tools that protect real owners from real threats. Welcome to Fraud on the Front Porch, and the truth about fraud starts now. Hello, folks, and thanks for joining, listening, or watching. Today's episode theme is all about property scams and those property scams targeting seniors. If you've been following us for some time, you know that seniors are disproportionately targeted, mostly because they trust, and in many cases, they have some equity. Many live in a bit of isolation, and because they're in isolation, they become easily engaged with scammers who want to target them for their real estate acumen. In many cases, seniors are unfamiliar with modern real estate processes, mostly because they haven't taken part in them for quite some time. Property scams have been on the rise lately, and here to help me talk about that is, as always, my fellow fraud furayer, Sean, who's going to help us understand a little bit more about these property-related scams, including real estate fraud, mortgage scams, forged documents, and the rest of the schemes targeting seniors. Hello, Sean. Welcome.
Hey, Tony. Thanks for having me. Great setup. One thing to note with real estate scams is the paperwork may be fake, but the losses are painfully real. And I am ready to dive into some statistics right away.
Awesome. All right, let's have it.
All right. These numbers around property scams are not just alarming, they're pretty staggering. So seniors lose hundreds of millions of dollars annually to property-related scams, including deed fraud, mortgage scams, and fake rental schemes. The FBI reports millions of older Americans fall victim to financial fraud every year, with real estate fraud among the fastest growing categories. So here's the big number. Real estate and rental scams cost Americans over $350 million last year. And of course, seniors made up a disproportionate share of the victims. Seniors are 52% more likely to be targeted by these scams than younger adults, especially when they are selling a long-held home or managing a rental property.
Yeah, I mean, it goes right into my opening statement. Scammers know exactly where the equity is. They don't have to guess. They're basically just hunting.
They're hunting, exactly. And listen to this. 1 in 10 seniors has been approached with a fraudulent real estate offer, whether it's a fake buyer, a forged deed transfer, or a fraudulent cash investor pitch. And the scams are getting more and more sophisticated. Mortgage-related scams targeting seniors have resulted in multi-million-dollar losses, including a recent $17.4 million mortgage scam ring.
Wow.
Reports of deed fraud, where scammers forge ownership documents, have increased by more than 70% in the last 5 years, and many counties now call it the fastest growing property crime in America.
Wow. Yeah, that's really, I mean, that hits really close to home for me. It happened to someone I know personally. Fortunately, it was thwarted like 3 times. Uh, I I really feel there may be a fourth one coming, simply because of the first 3. We thought it was arrested in the first one, and then 2 and 3 happened. And as we've talked about before, when you get nailed once, the probability of getting nailed twice, 3 times, it goes up. That sucker list we talk about. I think we're going to get into that one a little bit further in an episode. We might even have the individual on. I think this individual has got some real life, really germane experience to share with us. So time to make a note of that and potentially get this individual on there.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, to your point, when you do fall for these, I mean, it just gets worse and worse. In fact, here's another stat that is not great. 30% of seniors who fall victim to property scams lose more than $100,000, Tony, $100,000.
Mhm.
And seniors selling without a licensed real estate agent are 3 times more likely to be targeted by scammers posing as buyers or investors. In fact, 70% of seniors say they feel unprepared to verify real estate legitimacy. So think about that.
Yeah, that's devastating. I once tried to sell a home by for sale by owner, and then I ended up changing and getting a real estate agent simply for many reasons, but I can definitely see that. It's really tough to know who's good and who's bad. Hey, that's a big ad for the NAR, right? National Association of Realtors.
Right.
So congrats, folks. You got a little plug there.
Yeah. Um, Over 15,000 seniors last year reported being contacted by someone pretending to be a real estate agent or a title professional. I mean, that's just the ones who reported it.
Wow.
Here's another kicker. The average time it takes for a senior to realize they've been scammed in a property transaction is 45 days. So by then, the scammer's long gone. The money's gone, the damage is done. 45 days for discovery.
Yeah, I think 45 days, you could get halfway around the world in
Right.
45 days. That's that's crazy. I mean, I know we're going to get into a little bit more details about why that happens, why there's 45 days, and kind of going back to something you said about the numbers. The numbers are big because what's being deceived is big, right? It's your home, it's your house, it's your equity, the place where you've invested hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars over 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years stands to reason that this asset you spent a long time building would be at most risk for size, much more so than say the lottery scam or some other fraud we've talked about recently, job scams, charities. Most people aren't giving $400,000 to charity, right? You're
Right.
getting scammed out of a couple $100. This is the big time property scams.
Yeah, it is. And you're right. These numbers are very high and very shocking in some cases. One more stat for you, Tony, and you're going to like this one. This is why today's episode matters so much.
Hmm.
Seniors who receive even just 1 hour of fraud awareness training are 40% less likely to fall for a property scam.
Oh, I love that. Music to my ears. Finally, a stat worth getting excited over.
Yes.
I think I'm going to remember that as I give my presentation, my presentation series in the upcoming months. Um, just that knowledge is power, right? The whole reason why we're here and the way things can change and how we can help people, not necessarily reprogram them, but add on to their skepticism and teach them a little bit more insight.
Yeah, because when you understand the red flags and how to verify and the tactics of scammers, you're not just avoiding scams, you can shut them down before they start.
Yeah, love that. Love that. All right, good job. That was good segment. All right, let's share some stories and maybe a little data around some real property scams that we found during our research.
Yeah, sure. Here's one I found called the phantom buyer escrow scam. This loss was $42,000.
Mm.
This is a fake buyer for a home sending forged proof of funds, so pretending they have money. They're pressuring the seller to use a fraudulent escrow service. So a made up company and a made up buyer. It was discovered because a real real estate agent noticed mismatched routing numbers, and those funds were fortunately recovered. And of course, the scammer vanished into thin air.
Good. Yeah, that's a good one. The the one I have is really ironically right along the lines of what I was talking about earlier with regard to the forged deed grab. So this was an attempted theft of a fully paid off home. Now, big red flag there. Your home's paid off. You got a lot of equity,
Yep.
right? Someone can come in and swoop the deed. No bank owns the property. I get the deed. I can sell the house out from under you. Very dangerous situation to be in, which is why you have to have things like fraud alerts, and we'll talk about that, and ways in which you can be signified. This was really clever how this one got discovered. So, as you know, um, whenever there's recorded deed information that happens on a deed, there's people out there who get notified. Just the way our economy works. This is capitalism. One of the companies that got notified said, hey, the deed's been transferred. Maybe there's my service I can offer to this new homeowner. So a letter was sent to the new homeowner at the existing address. The daughter saw the letter coming in and said, wait a second, why is this letter being addressed to somebody I've never heard of in my parents' mailbox? Boom. Said, let me dig into this a little bit further. Found out that a
Wow.
deed transfer had been filed, was able to go to the county recorder and have the fraudulent filing reversed. By the
How,
way, very similar story to what happened to my friend.
how scary. And that's kind of leads into my next story too, but you're not looking to sell. You have no idea some of this stuff is happening in the
I
background.
know.
This is
I
crazy.
know.
The next one I have is the fake rental listing of a senior's home.
Yeah.
So this was a loss, not from the senior, but from people who thought they were going to rent the house. $18,000 total in deposits from multiple victims. Again, people scam to think they're putting down a deposit to rent a house. So the scammer copied photos of a senior's home online and listed it as a rental, listed it on a rental website. And this was discovered because someone who was thinking about renting, a prospective renter, knocked on the
Mhm.
door and was like, "Hey, I want to look at the house to see if I want to rent it." So, the outcome here is, the police investigated. The senior was, of course, cleared of wrongdoing. No mention if any of the money from the multiple victims was returned. But again,
Mm.
another example of you're just living your life day to day. You don't know any of this crazy stuff's happening. That all they did was steal pictures of your house that were online and put them on a rental site.
Can you imagine the,
It's horrible.
the, the profit margins on something like that?
I'm sure they're very high, and that's why they're happening.
It's just crazy, isn't
It
it?
is. It is.
I mean, but we see this happening with people who sell fake product,
Yes.
right?
Right.
These fake storefronts. Not to get too far off base here, but this was so recent, and I feel like it's so germane to what we're talking about. I'm gonna segue for a second. Yesterday morning, I wanted to log on to my bank. There was an account I wanted to make sure was visible to me online, so I did a top of the page Google search for my bank. I don't put my bank in my favorites because I don't want anybody coming onto my computer and
Sure.
clicking a button to get to my
Sure.
website, right? So I go in, I type my bank, and then I hover down when my bank logo comes up and everything else, and I hover over my bank to click on my bank link, says my bank, says the bank's website, and when I hover over it, you can look in the bottom left-hand corner of the browser, and before you click, you can see the actual link it evaluates to.
Mm-hmm.
It was a spoofed link.
Crazy. All the way at
It
the top
was
of the
a
Google search.
fake, fraudulent link.
My goodness.
And then I scrolled down further on the page, saw the exact same link set up and all this, and I hovered over it, and it was my real bank's link. How close was I to getting scammed out of that link?
Well, that tells you how
Like
much work
that.
they put in to get their fake website to show up in
I
a Google
know.
search earlier than your actual bank's website.
They're
That's not.
willing to do the work. They're
It's
willing to
crazy.
do the work, and we got
Yeah.
to recognize and respect that, right? Respect the player.
Well,
Don't hate the game. Don't hate the
you gotta
player.
stay
Hate
on
the
your
game.
toes. You gotta be on your toes all the time online, especially when you're
I
dealing with
know.
money, dealing with your money.
I hovered over the link. I took a screenshot. I sent it to my banker, my bank, and we have a good relationship, and they know me by name. And I sent them the screenshot, and they're like, "Wow, we will look into this." At
Yeah,
noon, I went back. It was gone. I have no idea if my email made a difference, but it was gone.
I'm sure it did. You
And
did
maybe
your
the bank has fraud detection tools
Yeah,
that find them automatically anyways, but I wasn't taking a chance. It was time to let them know.
good on you for
Just
reporting that.
bizarre.
Yeah.
I actually have a screenshot. I took a screenshot. I'm going to use it in the upcoming session when I talk to people and show them, hey, here's what you got to make sure you're clicking onto when you go onto a website.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you could be putting login and password information in. You're locked and you're gone.
Yep, they've got your account.
Yeah. All right. The last story I have is the reverse mortgage rescue scam. Once again, you have got a senior who's in a situation. Maybe they need some money. They have equity in their home. They can set up a reverse mortgage, which allows them to take essentially some equity out of their home. And instead of paying off their mortgage to own the property, they get money to basically slowly lose ownership of the property. Well, they get a lot of money along the
Mhm.
way, at least the
Yeah.
equity that's there. And what happens is this fraudster came in, promised to save the senior from foreclosure, and then they stole the payments. Now, there's various ways they can steal the payments. In this case, what they did was they essentially had the payments redirected because the bank said that they confirmed that they had never received any payments on the
Oh,
reverse mortgage. So all of those payments got redirected to the fraudster's account.
oh my gosh.
The senior had to call in legal help and probably some criminal help as well. Didn't recover very much.
Ugh.
Only partial funds were recovered, and that's what typically happens in these situations. Once the account gets discovered and they shut off the money flow, senior closes the account, they move on, right?
Yeah.
So just an unfortunate situation, especially in a reverse mortgage situation where you're essentially losing ownership of your home. They let that come through a legitimate institution to set them up so that real money will flow in, but then that real money never goes to the senior, it goes to the scammer. Just kind of it's a fascinating topic, really, if you think about it. It's, as we said, mostly because these numbers are so large and there's so much risk. Let's dive in a little bit deeper with the fraudsters and maybe how some of these folks operate. You know what I like to say, the interrogatives, how they get us, maybe some of these strategies and tactics that they use. You know, I don't think a lot of folks understand that when we talk about property scams, we're, we're not talking about amateurs, right? As I said earlier, these guys put the work in. They're despicable humans, but
Yes.
they are extremely organized. They're methodical. They're patient operators who, in a lot of cases, understand our real estate systems better than most homeowners, and in many cases, better than a lot of the inexperienced or even newer real estate agents that are out there.
Yeah. That's exactly right. So their entire strategy is built on infiltration, impersonation, and an information advantage. So they're invested no differently than the real estate professional. The difference is they're looking for shortcuts. They don't care about the law. They only want to talk about what might be plausible and what can be expedited and what can be exploited. So I've got 9 tactics that they use. I'll break down exactly how they do it. So
All
number
right.
one, they start with public records. I mean, scammers begin by combing through public property databases. Homeownership is most of the time publicly available. County assessor sites, tax rolls, probate filings, MLS listings. So they will look for, if they find your name, homes owned by seniors, properties with high equity, If a home is owned free and clear, like we talked about, maybe there's out of state owners. They know maybe there's not somebody close by. And of course, what we talked about earlier, homes listed as for sale by owner. These are all prime targets because scammers know owners might be distracted, overwhelmed, isolated, and again, unfamiliar with modern real estate processes.
Yeah, and the scary part is all the information's public. It's crazy. It's all public. They don't need to hack anything.
Yep.
They just need to look for it.
They just got to look. So, number two, they build a profile. Once they identify you as a target, scammers are going to build a psychological profile. They look for signs of loneliness and isolation, urgency to sell, lack of family involvement. We talk about family involvement on this podcast all the time. A desire for a quick and clean sale. And so they are going to tailor their fake pitch, their personality to that senior's emotional state.
Yeah, this is that fascinating part, right? They're not just stealing property, they're studying people.
Yes. And they do that by the third point, impersonating professionals. So this is where it all starts getting very sophisticated, Tony. They will use spoofed phone numbers. They will use fake business cards. They will use fake email addresses, and they have no problem impersonating whoever it is on the next step of a journey. So they will impersonate a real estate agent. Then they will impersonate the title company. They will impersonate bank officers. They will impersonate cash investors trying to pay you cash for your house. They will impersonate attorneys and even your county officials.
Yeah, so like a senior's never seen a fake ID or a spoof number. It's all legit.
All sounds great, doesn't it? All sounds great. All sounds above board. Number 4 on the list is they create urgency. Urgency is their absolute favorite weapon. So you will hear things like, we need to close this deal in 48 hours. I can pay you in cash. This is a cash offer, but only if you act right now. The market is shifting. You're going to lose money if you wait any longer. If you delay this, you are going to lose so much money. And we found a problem with your title, and you've got to pay this fee today. So urgency, we talk about it all the time. It shuts down your critical thinking. It gets you panicking.
Yeah. Once again, stress and pressure. Everything to comply.
Yep. Yeah. Number 5, they use fake escrow and title portals. So this is one of the most dangerous tactics they use. So these scammers, when they get really sophisticated, they will create fake escrow websites, fake title company portals, fake wire transfer instructions, and fake document upload pages. So you've got a website, Tony, that looks legitimate, looks like an actual company, again, at some part of this real estate transaction process. And they are trying to get you to upload actual documents so they can steal digital copies of your documentation. They want you to start wire transferring money around. They want to collect money through escrow processes or tax information, and they say they're the title company. They want you to send them a copy of your title. I mean, it just looks like the real thing. It's very dangerous. This is a very dangerous part of the process once you're in it. And once a senior wires money to an escrow service, it's gone. I mean, it is gone. That's it. That's it. That leads us to number 6. So they're going to forge their own documents as well. They're going to forge deeds, signatures, notary stamps, proof of funds, bank statements, pre-approval letters, and of course, inspection reports. It's not a blurry copy of a hazy document anymore, Tony. It's a high-res image. It's an AI-generated image, AI-generated signatures, stolen notary seals, and then, of course, if you've already been uploading documents to their fake website, they are going to reproduce documentation that looks legitimate.
Including things like notary seals, stolen
Yeah.
notary seals.
Yeah.
Yeah, like folks like the county recorder, they don't verify identities, right? That's up to the governing
Yes.
company transaction. All they do is just verify that all the paperwork looks complete. And if the paperwork looks complete, forged, as you say, with the right recipe,
Yes.
bingo.
Because at this point of the process, it's all paperwork. There's no
Yeah.
there's no IDs changing hands anymore. They
Easily
assume,
acquired paperwork.
yeah, it's assumed that all those checks and balances have been completed by the time we're at this point. So
No,
victims,
the
our
more online,
seniors
the
are
more
not
hidden.
going to get any help at this point of the process. No
Yeah.
one's overseeing this part.
Yep.
Okay, number 7, very important. Another pitch for the realtors. They are going to exploit seniors who are selling property without a proper agent. So again, that stat from the beginning, seniors selling for sale by owner are 3 times more likely to be targeted.
Hmm.
Isn't that something?
It, yeah, it's actually, again, where you can come to a conclusion that's just the opposite, depending on your perspective. You might think, well, if it's a for sale by owner, they must be really sophisticated and know what they're doing, and really, on top of it, more difficult to scam. But you're telling me that it's more often the case, it's just the opposite,
Yeah.
that they are more easily scammed.
There's just that lack of professional oversight happening at that stage of the
Yeah.
transaction. No one's verifying documents, license numbers, reviewing
Mm,
any kind of money transfer that's happening, spotting those inconsistencies which may be coming up with inside the scammer
mm,
story. So you're walking on ice without pads. You're exposed. It's just there's so much. There's so many areas to exploit there.
mm.
And I'll move on to number 8. And this is why, because you're not usually dealing with just one individual. These scammers use a team. They're very rarely, I mean, we talked about the high dollar amount. So they have whole teams dedicated to getting this money out of our seniors. One person will pose as a buyer. One person will pose as the title agent. Another person is probably developing the fake websites that we're looking at. Another person is handling the money laundering, how all the money is changing hands. And then another is handling the communication follow-ups for you. It's just a coordinated attack against you.
So this high value, high service, legitimate team you've just engaged is actually a fraud ring.
Right. It's a whole market. It's crazy. And finally, number 9, they disappear once the money shows up. So once that wire transfer hits their account, you're not going to get a phone. The phone number you've probably been using will go dead. The emails are going to bounce back. The websites are gone. If they have social media pages, if they're very sophisticated, those are going to disappear. And of course, your buyer is never going to call you back. There's no buyer. They're not responding. Everybody's gone. They've all vanished. And of course, our seniors are left holding the bag, confused, embarrassed, and financially devastated. So,
Mhm.
quick summary before we move on, Tony. Number 1, scammers are going to try to fool seniors by impersonating trusted professionals, creating that urgency and exploiting those gaps in verification if they're there. Number 2, now we're moving into the paperwork. They use forged documents, fake digital identities, and emotional manipulation to gain control of this whole transaction process. And then, and the third point is their goal is very simple. They want they want their victim to act before anybody else notices that anything's wrong. So they want to get in, fool you, and get out quickly with your money.
Yeah, that's as you're saying that, I'm thinking about the length of the transaction in general, the length of a real estate transaction. As you mentioned, there's so many other transactions than just selling a property,
Yeah.
but the length tends to be it's a cycle, right? It's a long sales cycle. that's a tough gig on the scammer to try to keep somebody silent for the entire time
For
the
sure.
transaction's taking
For
place
sure.
before the senior or anybody opens their mouth. Hey, I've just sold my property. Oh, I'm in the process of selling, or I'm closing so-and-so, right? So that just speaks to how good they are at their talk track.
It's true.
Crazy.
It's true.
And then of course the devastation, irresistible in so many instances. A lot of wired money, as we know, wired money can't be gotten back. I don't think anybody's paying for gift cards for a new property.
No, this
So
is
they're relying on wire. And I've been asked, I've wired a lot, not a lot, but I mean a good amount. And my bank is always 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, triple, quadruple check, quintuple
good.
checks.
Yeah.
Is this what you really want to do? Or is anybody compelling you to do this?
Yeah.
So I think we'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, any urgency or force to wire money is a red flag, big red flag. All right, let's go ahead and get into story time. Today's story is going to take us into something that probably still keeps a lot of real estate investigators up at night because it just shows how quickly a scammer can slip into a senior's life and take everything and then vanish without a trace. This is the story of Belinda Briggs, age 81, widowed, independent, proud. She lived in the same brick rambler for 46 years, the home where she raised her children, planted her garden, and built a life. But after a fall and a long recovery, Belinda decided it was time to downsize. She didn't want to burden the kids. She didn't want a fuss. She just wanted a simple sale. So she listed the home for sale by owner. And that's when he appeared. A man calling himself Daniel Hartman, polite, soft-spoken, well-dressed. He said he was a cash buyer helping his parents relocate. He said he loved the home's character. He said he wanted to honor its history. He said all the right things. He even brought cookies on the second visit. Belinda felt safe. She felt like she'd found the perfect buyer. Daniel offered full price. No contingencies, no inspection delays, no repairs needed. He said, "Let's make this easy for you." And that's when the real scam began. He introduced Belinda to his preferred title company, a beautiful website, professional forms, a friendly escrow officer who called her by name. But it was all fake. The title company didn't exist. The escrow officer didn't exist. The website was a clone, built to steal. They told Belinda she needed to pay $9,800 seller's compliance fee to move the transaction forward. They said it was standard. They said it was urgent. They said it had to be wired that day. And Belinda, trusting, overwhelmed, wanting to do everything right, wired the money. 2 days later, Daniel stopped responding. The escrow officer's number went dead. The website disappeared. The email bounced. Her money was gone. The worst part? Belinda didn't tell her children for 3 weeks. She was embarrassed. She felt foolish. She thought she had failed. By the time she reported it, investigators traced the wire through 3 foreign accounts. But that's where the trail went cold. Belinda lost $9,800, money she had saved for medical expenses, money she would never get back. The scammer? He moved on to the next senior selling a home alone. This is the reality of property scams. They don't just steal money, they steal confidence, dignity, and peace of mind. Oh boy. Based on the statistics you reported earlier, I'd say Belinda, even though she lost some money earmarked for medical expenses, probably got off pretty lucky at $9,800.
Yep. Yeah.
Keeping with that theme of the statistics, I want to recall something else you shared earlier, that 70% of seniors say they feel unprepared to verify the real estate legitimacy of the agent sent to help them.
Right.
So, as always, I think it's probably time to fight back. We've talked about the scams, we've talked about the tactics, talked about the red flags, but now we need to give our seniors a little bit more of the playbook. some real practical steps that folks can use to verify whether a buyer, an agent, or even a title company is legitimate. Um, I think by doing that, we can bring that 70% down to 40, maybe even lower.
Yeah.
You want to speak a little bit more to maybe how seniors can verify legitimacy of some of these transactions and maybe some of these real estate scams in general?
Yeah. Well, step one is to slow the whole thing down. So we just talked about the faster this process works, the better for the scammer. So we want to slow it down. A legitimate professional is not going to come in the door and say, you need to pay XYZ by next week or this whole thing falls apart. So the moment someone expresses interest in a senior's property, is the things you should do is never rush the sale, verify identities independently, call the brokerage directly, and confirm all license numbers. And we're going to talk about all that right now. So again, step one, while this person is there talking with you on the phone or otherwise, is you've got to get full legal names and company affiliations. If they come up and say, hey, I'm Dan and I'm an investor, that's not good enough. You want a full name, you want a company name, you need their company website, an office phone number, or even a license number if that's applicable. Now, we did just talk about how all those things can be forged and faked, but this is just a good step one to just set the standard right away. Number two, if they're on the phone with you, if this isn't an in-person, ask for a video call, because scammers are going to run as soon as you have to get them on camera.
Yeah.
And then the third step, again, in these initial conversations is ask them to walk through their process. Explain your process to me. So a real agent, a real person, or a real buyer is going to walk you through the steps very clearly. A scammer is going to be very vague and is not going to want to stay talking with you about a process at all. So that's kind of all of step one there to slowing down the process. That's with your in-person communication with this individual. Here are some tools our seniors can use after we've had that initial conversation. You want to go back and verify that these people are who they say they are. And so here are some tools and actual websites and resources that make verification easy. Tony, we might want to print these up on the website because there's a lot, and I'm going to go through them very quickly.
Perfect.
First off, you can verify real estate license. Every state has a real estate agent lookup tool. You can look up an agent name, their license number, their brokerage, whether they're active or suspended or expired. You just have to Google your state's name and the license lookup, and you're going to find these databases. You can also verify the names of title companies to make sure those are legitimate. You can verify deeds and ownership. You can go to your county clerk office. You can go to your county's recorder office and confirm that this is the actual owner. This is the actual the property owner, and if there's a lien on the property, and if there's been a deed transfer lately, and if it's your own property, whether there's been a deed transfer committed against your knowledge. And so those are some good ways to just kind of do that follow-up. Again, you can use those county recorder office to spot fakes. If they've given you a website or an email address or an email domain, you can spot the fake using other tools like Google or your county recorder's office. So you want to check the URL carefully. Scammers are always misspelling things. They're putting extra hyphens in things. They use wrong domain endings. So if you think about .com addresses, maybe they use a .biz or something kind of weird that doesn't sit right. And they're always going to try to impersonate names, use look-alike names. So it might be real-titleco.com instead of realtitleco.com. So just look for those hyphens, those just weird little shifts in spelling for sure. If you get to their website and there is a website there, always check an About Us page. Like, here's about us. Here's how our company was founded. Here's our staff. Here's our names and titles. Because scammers aren't going to put all that effort into every corner of the website. So that's also a giveaway that some of those things a friendlier website would have are missing. Again, check the email domain. A real title company is not going to be titlecompany@gmail.com. It's not going to have a Yahoo address or an Outlook.com address. It's going to have their company name as the domain. And then, of course, you can always Google the company's name plus the word scam and see if there's a scam out there. And if people have been scammed by this company before, it's going to show up in Google search, most likely. Okay, once you've done all that, you've looked up the buyer's name online, you've looked up the business name online, you've looked up a business address on Google Maps. That's another good one to do. Checking for mismatched emails, checking for weird phone numbers. Here are some real examples that seniors have done in the past. And these are really quick. This is a quick way to shut down these scams. Here's an actual example, Tony. There was a fake buyer who refused to take video calls. So the senior's chatting with them on the phone. They ask for a video call to discuss things. The buyer refused. That's it. The deal's over. The scam's avoided just by asking for a video call. You get this troublesome person out of your life. That's a really quick one. Here's one with a follow-up piece that we just talked about. This was a title company with no physical address. So after the conversation, the senior Googled the address of this title company that was presented. It was a parking lot. So the senior just walks away. Again, scam avoided. Here's another example. This is where the escrow instructions don't match. So this time a senior called the title company directly. I love that. I love it when you don't use the number provided. You actually call the legitimate company. And of course, what did that company say? Well, we didn't send that email. We don't even know who that person is. So then right there was a wire transfer that had about to be initiated, and it was stopped. Another great example. One more for you. This one was an agent with a suspended license. So a senior, again, after an initial conversation, looked up the agent on their state's license lookup database, and the agent's license had been revoked. So she hired somebody else. That easy. So that was 4 really quick examples I had of just those quick follow-ups. Those are 1-minute follow-ups, Tony, that could save you a lifetime of just angst. So
I love
much
it when
money.
they do the work.
Yeah. I mean, it's really easy steps to avoid those scams. So my final takeaway, that verification piece is so powerful. It's just those small steps you can take to prevent massive losses.
Yeah, those are fantastic. I love the examples and just the steps in general and the thought process, what you've got to be experiencing to verify legitimacy. Everybody wants everyone else to be legitimate, right?
Yep.
Of course, you just want them to be legitimate, but sometimes you got to do a little work to verify that legitimacy, and none of us like to do it.
Right.
But man, does it pay dividends. Scammers absolutely lose their advantage when we can verify legitimacy, and you've given us some very practical ways to do that. I know there's more ways we can do that. We can go back through this recording. We can look at some more ways. You might be able to verify some legitimacy, and we can get some posted on the website. Certainly, absolutely want to do that for not only us.
Trust but verify. Tony.
Trust but verify. Exactly.
You want to trust. Nobody wants to believe they're getting scammed. Nobody wants to believe they're getting scammed. But those steps you can take after that conversation are so valuable.
Man, isn't that the truth of it? No one wants to believe they're getting scammed,
Nobody
right?
does.
If you had to go into every scenario or every transaction believing you were getting scammed, you would be an absolutely miserable person to deal with.
You would.
So we have this thing called a trust-built society.
Yes.
But unfortunately, it only takes one bad apple or several bad apples.
A team of bad apples.
Team of bad apples, exactly. The whole fraud ring. All right, you ready?
Quiz time. I'm ready.
Quiz time. All right, quiz time. Okay. We're up in our game this time. We got 6 questions for you instead of 5.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. All right. So some of these are I was struggling a little bit on some of these, so hopefully you'll get them pretty
I hope
easily.
so too.
All right. First one, easy. True or false? A legitimate buyer will never pressure you to use their private escrow service.
Oh, that is true. That is true.
Excellent.
Yes.
True. Very true. You don't ever want to pressure somebody on either side of the transaction
Right.
when you're conducting real estate. If you are, probably a red flag. Probably a
Something's
red
up.
flag.
Yep.
Okay. Number 2, speaking of red flags, which is a major red flag? Multiple choice. A, buyer wants to close quickly. B, buyer refuses video calls. C, buyer offers full price. Or D, buyer sends a handwritten letter, which is a major red flag.
Yeah, this is a tough one because there are buyers that want to close quickly, although that can be a pressure tactic, so you do have to be aware of that. I will say
Right.
B, refusing the video call is a huge, huge red flag.
Good job. Yeah, that's the one that most stands out. You're right. I mean, other than a buyer offers full price, probably not a big scam there. Like, could be,
That
because it
does
could be with
happen.
fake
Yeah.
stolen money or something. But
Yeah.
I would say the most major red flag is that video calls. If
Yep.
you can't show who you are, probably not a good sign.
Yep.
So good job on that one. And yeah, you're right. Buyers may sometimes want to close quickly for
Sure.
lots of legitimate reasons.
Yeah.
We don't always know everybody's motives for things. And when we do understand them, a lot of times we'll be more amenable, but there might be situations where we're not necessarily allowed to understand them. So we just got to
Yeah.
go on faith there. Okay, number 3, true or false? A county recorder can verify whether a deed transfer is legitimate.
That's very true, and that's the source. I mean, that's where you should go to verify
Yeah.
any kind of transaction like that.
Yeah, they can verify, I want to be clear, they can verify that the deed transfer is legitimate, but they cannot verify whether the deed transfer was done unscrupulously or
Yep.
not.
Correct. Yeah.
So please keep that in mind when thinking about deed transfers. Number 4, multiple choice. Which scam involves forged signatures? A, a rental scam. B, a deed fraud. C, a fake appraisal. Or D, reverse mortgage scam.
Oh my gosh. These could all have fake signatures on. This might be the toughest question you've ever asked me to date.
It's a tough one because
Fake signatures forged signatures go all around, but for them to try to perpetrate an illegal transaction, it would be B, the deed fraud. You would need to forge someone's signature to push that through.
yeah, you're right. Um, it's not a trick question. It's really maybe a question of degrees, and I think you're right. I think
Yeah.
the most egregious is probably the deed fraud that they would forge on. But yeah, you could forge a signature on a rental scam. You could
Of
forge a
course. Yeah.
signature on a fake appraisal.
Yep.
You could forge a signature on a reverse mortgage scam. In order to perpetrate any of these scams, you're probably forging a signature.
Yeah.
But I would say that deed fraud is probably the most egregious. So good job. Good job on that one. Number 5, if a buyer's ID looks perfect, it must be real.
That's false. And that's because of the world of AI that we live in that can emulate just about anything, make some pretty good looking fakes these days.
Yeah, I mean, you wonder if a few years from now, kids are going to even go to school anymore because you can just generate a diploma from a university using AI with your
We
name
gotta
on it.
watch. That'll be a next episode, maybe.
Yeah, that'll be another episode. All right, good job. And then last one, multiple choice. What should you do if you suspect a scam? A, ignore it. B, call the scammer. C, contact your title company or agent. D, post about it online.
Well, it depends on which part of the process you were involved in, but definitely C, contact your title company or agent, but you could post about it online to warn others. I don't know. That's not a bad step sometimes.
It's not a bad step once you're out of the clear because you
Once
don't
you're
want to
good.
signal
Yeah.
anybody like
Yeah.
scammers. But I
Yeah.
would say B, call the scammers. I'd say let the cops do that. You don't need to do that. I'd say once you realize you're in a fraudulent situation, maybe take a step back and let the authorities handle it.
True. Very true.
That's their gig.
You don't you
All
mean
right,
that
nice
being a
job as
social
always.
you don't wanna be a
What's that?
social media warrior and alert everybody?
I think we've learned from previous episodes that I
I
am
think you're
not
right.
a social media warrior.
I think you're right.
This is quite the coup for me to get on video and be talking about this stuff. And if I didn't care about it so much and I wasn't so passionate about it and didn't fulfill my desire to educate and share that which I'm passionate about that can help others, I don't think we'd see a lot of me on camera or in social media.
Yeah.
And I may just leave this in the video just to make that point. But I do enjoy that we get to teach people and share these things. So I'm super motivated by that. Nice job on
Thanks.
the numbers
Thanks.
there. Any more educational nuggets you want to share with us today as we move it in to wrapping things up?
Sure, yeah, there's one thing we didn't talk about yet. Trust your instincts.
Good.
If it feels wrong, it's probably wrong. So discomfort in a transaction and any part of this process is a warning sign. Confusion is a warning sign. Urgency, of course, is a bad sign. Urgency, pressure, and isolation, those are all big warning signs for something bad about to happen or a scam on the way.
Yeah, it's just never ignoring that little voice that says, something just doesn't feel right.
Yes. Another thing to keep things logical, to keep that fear from taking over when you think maybe you're losing an opportunity, I would recommend building yourself a checklist. And again, just for your own safety, and this is something we can post as well, but when you're speaking to a buyer or an agent, you need to be asking for a full name. If it's an agent or some other representative, you need to ask for their company name. You need to ask for a license number, and you need to ask for that video call if it's over the phone. So those are boxes you should have checked on a checklist before moving forward at all, even with the next conversation with that person.
Yeah, I love that.
Here's a big one. Before wiring any money, you need to have, number one, talk to the title company directly through their own published number, not through a number that anybody else gave you. You need to confirm wire instructions if you're wiring money verbally with them. You need to verify this company's physical address, and you need to check for any kind of strange, mismatched emails or something that doesn't make any sense. So again, you should be checking those boxes before money is leaving your account. And then before you sign anything, read the document out loud to yourself. I know that seems like a lot of work, but I do that for a lot of things in my life,
I do that too.
not just money, just so you can actually take in what you're looking at.
I
Have a
hear you.
family member review it. You got to get a second set of eyes on any document, especially from with somebody you trust, for sure. If there is a notary seal on the document, make sure that's real. There are ways to verify that, which we talked about, and then compare signatures. If they're forging signatures, maybe one of the signatures looks different than the other. So again, you're checking those boxes before you actually sign anything. So we've got our checklist. You've got your gut feeling. You're trusting your instincts. Now ask the 3 big questions of anyone you're dealing with. You ready for these?
Go for it.
Who are you really? So you're verifying identities. Why are you rushing me? Because a real professional isn't going to put that rush, that urgency on you. And how can I verify all of this independently? So you need to be collecting license numbers, websites, all kinds of records like that.
I love that. That's like the ubiquitous universal armor shield. I think those 3 questions alone stop 80% of the scams, because if someone can't answer those in a satisfactory way, you're gonna walk.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you're gonna walk. Yeah. Good job.
Yeah, that's a great point. And you're leading right into a success story I've got for you, Tony, about Harold and his avoidance of a sale that almost got stolen. Let me tell you about a man named Harold Jennings, aged 84, a retired engineer, sharp as ever, but recently widowed and trying to sell the small rental property that he and his wife managed for decades. Harold listed the property with a reputable agent, but he still handled most of the communications himself. He wanted to stay independent. He wanted to prove he could still manage things on his own. But that's when the scammer stepped in. A man calling himself Victor Alvarez reached out with a full price cash offer. Everybody loves the sound of that. He said he was an investor buying properties for his daughter. He said he wanted to close quickly. He said he respected Harold's time. He said all the right things. Victor sent over a proof of funds letter. That looked real. He sent a copy of his ID. That looked real. He even sent a link to a secure portal for Harold to upload documents. But luckily, Harold's agent, a seasoned professional, noticed something odd. The email domain didn't match the brokerage that Victor claimed to work with. The phone number he provided wasn't listed anywhere online, and the secure portal URL had a subtle misspelling. So the agent did something simple, something powerful. She called the real brokerage. They had never heard of Victor. The license number he provided belonged to a retired agent in another state. The proof of funds letter was forged, and the ID was AI generated. It was a full-on impersonation scam, the kind designed to steal property outright. The agent immediately froze communication, notified the title company, and contacted Harold's daughter. Together, they shut the scam down before any documents were signed, before any money moved, before any damage was done. Harold later said, "I would have fallen for it. I trusted him because I didn't know what to look for." And that's the lesson. Because of one vigilant agent, because of one phone call, because of one family member stepping in, Harold kept his property, he kept his money, and he kept his peace of mind. And the scammer walked away empty-handed. Also, Harold walked away with something far more valuable, confidence that he wasn't alone.
I love that circle of trust. That's a nice story. Nice job, Harold and gang. Sean, that was great. Any closing thoughts for us?
I think we covered it all today, Tony.
Yeah, we have. And I think there'll be more even to share on the website. Thank you very much, Sean. That's a lot of great intel today. And until next time.
Thanks, Tony.
Property scams thrive in silence. But today, we've pulled back the curtain. You've heard the tactics, the red flags, the stories of loss, and the stories of survival. You've learned how scammers infiltrate sales, forge documents, and impersonate professionals. And you've learned how seniors, families, and real estate pros can fight back with verification, awareness, and confidence. Because the more you know, the harder it becomes for scammers to steal what you've worked a lifetime to build. And always remember to pause, question, and ask for help.